beautiful people of the internet, how are you doing today? My name is Jackie, welcome back to my channel, and today in this video I am going to be recapping all of the books that I read in May and June of 2018. Now I combined May and June into one video because during May it was my finals for college, so I really did not read that much that month. I only finished 2 books in the month of May and then I read 3 more in June, so it just would have been like really boring to make a video with only 2 books in it, so I combined these 2 months, and yes, I have read 15 books so far this year, which I am pretty proud of so far. My goal was to read at least 28 in the entire year, so I am currently 1 book ahead of schedule, and I wanted to read 28 this year because I read 27 books last year, so I wanted to beat last year's total, and so far I am on track to do that, which is awesome. So the first book that I read in the month of May was Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. This book is about the Dashwood sisters, Eleanor and Marianne, and their misadventures in love. Eleanor falls in love with their brother-in-law, Edward, and Edward's sister is married to their brother, and Marianne falls in love with a dashing young man named Willoughby, who is not entirely what he seems. Meanwhile, the much older Colonel Brandon is also in love with Marianne. And I did enjoy this book. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. I think part of the reason why I didn't give it 5 stars is because I was comparing it to Pride and Prejudice, which is easily in my top 5 favorite books of all time. So it probably was a little unfair of me to be comparing this to Pride and Prejudice. But I mean, I did, and I did not enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Pride and Prejudice. I think the characters in Pride and Prejudice resonate more with me and are more memorable. However, I still thought this book was wonderful. It is not too hard to follow. I know sometimes when I read classic novels, the language is just so archaic and the storytelling is not easy for me to follow, but this one I think is very accessible to a modern day reader, and I just love both Jane Austen stories that I've read so far. This is the second of her novels that I have read. I think they're definitely fun and light and romantic, cute, have some really good humor in them as well. So I did really enjoy this book. I wasn't like super in love with the characters. I liked them, but I'm not gonna they're not gonna be my new favorite characters or anything. I did really enjoy this though. I also, in modern day, it's a little iffy to have like a 30-something-year-old man who's in love with a 16-year-old girl, because nowadays we would call that statutory. But there was a different time. So, it's to a modern day reader that may feel a little iffy. The second and last book that I read in the month of May is This Is Our Story by Ashley Elston. This is a YA thriller. It is about this group of boys who one day they all go out hunting together and one of them does not come back alive. So the other boys are now suspected of murdering their friend. Our main character, Kate, works at the DA's office and is investigating the River Point boys for murder, and she has her own personal motivation to want to find out the truth about what happened. Now, originally I wasn't super excited to start this book. I got it, I believe, for Christmas, and the whole premise just didn't sound that interesting to me. I thought, I don't know if I'm really gonna like this book. It sounds like pretty generic, but I decided to pick it up because it wasn't that long, and I did see that it had pretty decent reviews on Goodreads, and once I started reading it, I actually ended up really liking it. I also gave this book 4 stars out of 5. I think there were plot twists in this book that I didn't see coming, which is always important to me because I have read so many mystery thrillers that sometimes I can just see the big reveal at the end coming a mile away. With this book, there were things that were surprising to me. I wouldn't say I fell in love with the characters or anything, but I didn't mind them, and that's saying something because a lot of time when I read YA books, like the protagonist just makes you roll my eyes and there's so many cliches. I didn't see that in this book, and I did not mind the romance. I thought it was actually kind of cute. Usually YA romance is so cheesy and just makes me roll my eyes. But I did like this one. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because I think this book could have benefited from being maybe 10 pages longer. The resolution at the end just seems a little rushed for me, and I think if this book had maybe taken a couple more pages to develop that reveal at the end, I would have given it 5 stars, because it just felt like a very abrupt ending, and I kind of wanted to see more about the repercussions at the end of the book. However, I did really enjoy it, and I think as far as YA mystery thrillers go, this was a really good one. Now, the next book I finished at the beginning of June. However, I had been reading it since, I believe, the end of April. It is a hefty, over 700-page book, so it's not exactly light reading, and the book I am talking about is A Clash of Kings by George R. R. Martin, which is the second book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, which is the inspiration for my favorite television show, Game of Thrones. This is the second book in the series, like I said, so it's the second one I've read, and I just love the series. I love the books more than the show, if you can believe it's even possible. I mean, the show is like my favorite television show, and the books I think are even better than the show. They have much more development in the books, and I like certain characters so much more in the books because I feel like the books gives me a deeper appreciation for them now that I can actually see inside their head and understand more of their personal motivations and their feelings about the world, their underlying insecurities, their feelings about themselves. That's something about this book that I really, really enjoy. I also just really like George R. R. Martin's writing style. I like the detail he gives. I like the way he tells the story. George is very famous for the detailed descriptions he gives about food. So if you read this series, you have that to look forward to. If there is a feast, he will just go on for a good paragraph talking about all the food that they're eating. So if you're reading this, you might want to have snacks. And I really, really, really love this series. I gave this book, although on Goodreads I gave it 4 stars, but I think my real rating would be 4.5. The only reason I don't want to give it 5 stars is because there are some iffy sexual violence elements in this book, which is the same problem I have with the television show. However, I think the TV show is more problematic with sexual violence than the book, because I don't think the book is as descriptive, whereas the show does show you, very graphic scenes of sexual violence. In the books, it's not super explicit. However, there are still certain moments that make me uncomfortable. There was a scene in this book involving Theon and a woman that made me uncomfortable that I don't think was on the TV show. And there is a minor side character who is sexually assaulted, which was also kind of disturbing, even though it wasn't shown in detail. That is a trigger for people, and that is the reason why I did not give this 5 stars. I really love the story, I really love the writing, I love the characters, I love the world. I mean, the characters that he has created are so memorable, and even the ones that I don't like, I can still respect their writing because they are such 3-dimensional characters, whether you love them or hate them. And I just really love this series. I'm really excited to read book 3, A Storm of Swords. And yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. 4.5 is my real rating. And yeah, I feel like I'm just repeating myself now. I love this series. One of my favorites. The next book that I read in June, I really wanted to love, but in the end, I thought it was just okay. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, so it was good but not great, and that book is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This book follows a Chicago reporter named Camille who is assigned to return to her small hometown to investigate the murders of 2 young girls. And she has a very troubled relationship with her mother following the death of her sister many years ago. And she also has a younger half-sister who she does not know very well due to her estrangement from her mother, who is a bit of a troublemaker, and Camille worries may someday have the same problems that she has. Camille is a very troubled main character. She used to self-harm, and I would call her an alcoholic. She definitely engages in some troubling behaviors throughout the book, but at the same time, I did sympathize with her. I did feel bad for her and what she's been through in her life, so I could kind of understand why she was engaging in these bad behaviors. I will say, though, the book really did not surprise me at any point. I mean, I kind of had an idea in my head about who the killer could be because there were not a lot of people that I felt like were significant enough in the story for it to be, if that makes any sense. Like, there were really only 2 people that I actually viewed as potential suspects. So, because of that, the ending was not surprising to me. There was no big twist or wow moment in here. I didn't dislike it. I thought it was a perfectly fine book. I think the writing is good. I think it's an interesting read. I just was kind of waiting for something to really wow me, and that never came. So I gave it 3 stars. It was good, but it wasn't great, and it wasn't terrible either. So, you know, it was very average. And the last book that I read in June was My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. This is a comical, fantastical retelling of the story of Lady Jane Grey, who was Queen of England for 9 days. However, this totally changes the story and adds elements of magic. In this version of Tudor-era England, there are people known as Ethians who can turn into animals, and they are opposed by the who believe that the Ethian magic is evil and needs to be done away with. So our main characters are Lady Jane Grey, who is placed in an arranged marriage with Gifford G. Dudley, and G is an Ethian, and he turns into a horse every single day from sunup to sundown, and he doesn't know how to control the change. And this marriage is arranged by G's father, who is an advisor to the young King Edward, Jane's cousin. All 3 of these characters are point of view characters in this book, and even though this book is written by 3 different authors, it just flowed together so seamlessly. Like, I felt as if one person wrote this book. It didn't feel like any separate writing styles at all. It flowed so nicely, which I appreciated. I love Jane as a main character. I think the book was funny. There were points when I laughed out loud in front of other people, which was kind of embarrassing. And I thought it was a really cute, fun read. I got through it pretty quickly considering it's almost 500 pages. And it was really everything that I hoped it would be, which is why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The reason I did not give it 5 stars is because I thought the characters of Mary Tudor and Bess Tudor could have been developed more. They both felt a little blah to me. And also, I don't know if other people felt this way, but I thought the character of Gracie was almost too perfect. I don't really want to call her a manic pixie dream girl, but I don't know. I felt she was a bit of a Mary Sue, and I would have liked to see more layers to her character. She just seemed like too perfect to me, which bugged me a little bit. I will say, though, I did enjoy this book. I love Tudor-era England. I thought it was super fun. I liked how they added these elements of fantasy and comedy to it, and I really, really enjoyed this. I just wish that some of the side characters had been developed more in the story. Before I forget, another thing I wanted to say about My Lady Jane was they did change some things about history. I mean, in addition to the magic, like they changed some people's names. Gifford Dudley's real name was actually Guildford. I don't know if I'm saying that right. That didn't really bother me, but I just thought it was funny how his brother, his real name was Robert Dudley, and the writers changed his name to Stan. Like, oh, Robert is a sucky name. Let's call him Stan. So those are all the books that I read in May and June 2018. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. Also, let me know in the comments your favorite book that you read this month. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!